Welcome to the M26 FIT Podcast, where we explore the connection between having a strong mind and a strong body. I'm Magnus Olsen, and on today's episode, our special guest is Peter Ferreira, a professional speaker, psychologist and business coach. He's an advocate for mental health. He'll be sharing the importance of having a North Star, investing in your mind, overcoming adversity and the power of fear. From his own personal journey to his work helping others, Peter will be sharing valuable lessons on how to navigate the ups and downs of life and how to harness your own inner strength and resilience. Join us now as we deep dive into the mind of a true expert and learn how you can take control of your own mental health and well-being. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, Magnus.
To kick us off, why don't you give us a little 5-minute version of the Pete Ferreira backstory?
All right, good question. So where do I start? So I was born not in Australia. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, actually, and then migrated here with my family. I'm the eldest of 5 children. Many years ago, about 40 years ago, and arrived in a little country town called Toowoomba. I actually grew up on a citrus farm in South Africa, so I've got a bit of a rural sort of splash in me. But fast forward to where am I today? So I run my own successful boutique management consultancy business called EQ Proprietary Limited. And basically my day job is to inspire other people and businesses to be confident and motivated to do what they need to do to achieve their goals. And I'm very privileged in this line of work and feel very privileged to talk to you today. So my work is mainly in the corporate sector because that's my background. And I've been in my own business now for 22 years. So there's the backstory.
That's a great story. So fellow immigrant, well done. So business coaching, would you mind just explaining a bit more about that, what it is, who it's for and why it could be so useful for people?
Okay. Yes, I do. I think we all do from time to time need somebody just to nudge us a bit, just to help us on the way to achieve our goals. Because in my experience, everybody wants to improve, everybody wants to be happy, everybody wants to live a good life. But it's easier said than done, and so forth. So what business coaching is about is to actually help clients, first and foremost, help them identify what their goals are. I call it the Northern Star. What are you navigating to? What's that shining, bright star that you're navigating to, the dream, and so forth. But then what you do is you have to translate that into reality. And usually to do that is you need to come up with some plan. And once you've got your plan, it's then work out what specific actions or tasks I need to do to achieve that plan. And the final step around that is the taking action. Just do it, the good old Nike ad. And we all know that. I'm not telling you anything or anybody anything they don't know. But in my own personal experience and with my clients, sometimes we need somebody on the sideline to hold us to account to actually making sure we do what we committed to doing that. It's a bit like going to the gym, Magnus, and you go to gym, the personal trainer is there to, come on, Magnus, you can do a few more and hold it to account. And that's really what business coaching is about, is to help individuals and organizations achieve whatever their goals are.
Yeah, that's a great little analogy.
Thank you.
Now, mental strength, mental resilience, and its importance to live a happy, a balanced life. Would you just share a few tips, probably in the context around the psychological side of things for us?
Many years I read a book, it's called Psycho-Cybernetics, and don't ask me to spell that, Magnus.
I've read that.
By a guy called Maxwell Maltz. It was a bestseller about 30 or 40 years ago when I first read it, and it's funny to say that it's still a bestseller. But the premise is basically this guy is a plastic surgeon, and he's performed many plastic surgeries on people to beautify them, to make them look more attractive, more sexy, and so forth. But what he found is like a lot of these people, after they spend big dollars in looking more gorgeous and glamorous, they still were feeling flat. They're not feeling good about themselves. So then he started doing his own research. So the point of the story there is actually they lack self-esteem. They lack self-belief, and whatever the case can be. So part of mental resilience and toughness is to build your own self-esteem, your self-belief around that. And I do believe that's the core. if you've got a good inner sense of who you are, you accept yourself for your strengths and weaknesses, then the whole world looks different.
Yeah, so being authentic.
Totally authentic, and it's a deep knowledge of who you are, what makes you tick, and accept yourself, warts and all. But that's going to propel you into, a good headspace in terms of how to take on daily challenges, how to further grow and improve yourself. But that's where it starts. It's that inner core of self-belief and self-esteem. And the good news is you and I we can control a lot of the variables around that, Magnus.
Yeah, we can control how we react.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well said. Mental health in particular, how have you seen that impacting society, do you think, in the last decade?
Wow, that's a great question, and it's a complex one. And I'll give a mixed answer there, good and bad. I'll start with the bad first, So in my work in this sort of space, unfortunately, if you look from a business perspective, if your financial trajectory is going north, that's good. More profit, ka-ching. But unfortunately, over this period of time, what I've also witnessed and seen, and everyone probably see it every day, is those stats is also trending north. Mental illness, depression, anxiety, bipolar, and suicide, unfortunately, is tracking north. So that is a concern, and particularly also in our youth these days. Because what we're seeing more so now, we're seeing adult-style mental problems presenting much earlier with the youth, and that is a big concern, not just for me, but for us in society. So there's some concerning statistics around that. But on the positive side of things, I think we're much more educated these days around mental health, and I'm seeing many more programs, and particularly the work you're doing, this amazing work you're doing with your organization, Magnus, is to bring further attention to people about recognizing the symptoms of that, but also then more importantly, what can I do to prevent it or deal with it if I do have it? And there's some magnificent organizations that do amazing work in this, and I will put a plug out there for the Black Dog Institute, which is a non-for-profit, and they do amazing research around this and programs, which I've been privileged to be part of, and then it's Beyond Blues as well, and other organizations. So more and more research is coming out that can help people to identify symptoms, and then more importantly, where and how to seek help, and to live a good life, because I believe we all deserve a good life. And we're very lucky in Australia. We can actually, enjoy the benefits of all the great research and health practitioners.
Yeah, that actually brings up a point. So I was reading something recently about nature deficit disorder. Have you come across that?
No, not at all. Because I'm in nature all the time. And on a serious note, there's part of the research as well. This is perhaps part of the issue, Magnus, is that we live in urban, built-up societies that's stress and noise and pollution, whatever, and we have sort of lost touch a bit with nature. And but once again, we're getting more educated, and also, the town planners are getting smarter. We're seeing more green space now happening in our cities and whatever, and parklands, and even here in Brisbane, where you and I'm based, the river is actually, they're making more recreational facilities available for families and public to enjoy nature. So once again, that is a factor.
All right, good. Now, we got the M26 in 26 questions in 26 minutes. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
All righty. So it's 2023, goal setting, commitments. Do you think it's important, or is it just a waste of time?
It's imperative. Goal setting is imperative. And not necessarily the New Year's resolution type goal setting. I think this is a natural discipline in life. So anybody in life that's successful and happy, if you look at one of the ingredients I've got, and this is part of my study about human behavior and understanding people, they are goal-focused. They know what they want to achieve. They know why they want to achieve that, but more importantly, they've got the skill, the consistency, and the application to actually make it happen. So to answer your question, if you haven't got a goal, you'll drift.
Yeah. So a little bit of that Northern Star, you've got to know where you're headed.
Totally. But, if I may, once again, just my experience, many of my clients, they struggle with that Northern Star. And I'm talking senior people, I'm talking very intelligent, very qualified people, very successful people in a commercial sense, but they're drifting. Yeah. They're not clear on what they actually want to be when they grow up.
Yeah. Well said. Who's the smartest person you've sat in a room with?
Wow, Magnus, I have to say, after you, I have to say that, don't I? Well, actually, you take my mind back a long time now, and he's passed now, this guy. He was one of my earlier mentors when I first started in my professional career, Alan Greening. And he was one of those guys that he solved all the problems of the world, or that was the impression. You know, an organization I worked for, he had a reputation. And then when I first met him and got to work with him, what he would do, he was an amazing listener and a very good questioner. And some of those techniques and skills I've actually borrowed, thanks Alan, and using in my coaching business. By asking the right questions, most people has actually got the answers within them. And he was a master at that, where he would, through just let the person talk. In my case, when I speak to him, he would reflect back. So what do you think, Pete? What do you think you should do? And then I come up with the answer, and he would say, fantastic, that's a good answer. And I walk out of his office, and I thought, wow, this guy's a genius. He just fixed my problems. Yep. He didn't.
And
I did. I owned it. So that was...
What's the most important lesson that you've ever learned?
Well, lots of lessons, but perhaps the most important is that life sometimes deals hands, which you and I have got no control over. And then we've got two choices if you get knocked. You can either go down and become the poor me, the victim, ain't it awful? Or you can go the other way, still take the pain on the chin, but change your mindset how you can deal with that issue. And I've been there where I've played the victim card in my earlier days, but the most powerful thing that I've learned is that the amount of control we all have in terms of how we live our lives and what we want to achieve. It's amazing.
So it's how you react to whatever happens.
Correct.
In one sentence, what's your definition of discipline?
My definition of discipline is consistent application over time.
It's one of my sayings, consistency creates excellence.
That's it.
The greatest decision that you've ever made?
The greatest decision I've made was to start my own business 22 years ago now. I come from a corporate background and loved it, and I worked for some very high-profile organizations. As a matter of fact, I cut my teeth, did my apprenticeship in there. Yep. But what my own business has afforded me to do, the quality of my lifestyle, mental, physical well-being, best decision I've made, and also for my family, I had time, because I ran my own business, to devote time, and my adult children are now my friends because I had the time with them.
3 words to describe what it's like working from your home on the island paradise.
Awesome.
What gives you inspiration, Pete?
Wow, there's lots of things. Just the opportunities out there. You know, I've been in the business a long time now. I've been in the planet a long time. Some people may even think I'm at the back end of my career. Not quite. But I'm still as motivated about the opportunities, personally and professionally, that's out there on this planet. And that inspires me. And there's so much work to be done. You know, it's like, so in my mind, getting old and decrepit is not a fucking option. I have to keep going, invest in myself mentally and physically, because I've got a job to do to help other people to be inspired and motivated to help achieve their goals. So
that's, heading towards your Northern Star, your destiny. You've got to keep moving.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Can't stop.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite saying?
The world's your oyster.
You've been conducting facilitations for decades now. What are some of the benefits of corporate retreats and off-site activities for businesses?
Okay. Yes, great question. One thing is to take people away from their normal environment, because the brain remembers things that's different. So if you do a facilitation or a program or even a strategic planning session or leadership program in people's work environments, their headspace is still in work, and their one ear is waiting for the knock on the door or thinking about that emails they need to respond to or that problem they've got. So by taking away people to a off-site environment, you get them in a different space. You get them to just loosen up. They're relaxed, and their headspace is much more open for a learning environment. And it's critical in any learning intervention or is to get people away.
Okay, because I believe that you do some retreats over at the island. And I remember attending one of those last year, and it was a wonderful environment to find yourself in, going for a walk in the morning and watching the sunset over the ocean was awesome.
Yes, correct.
What role do you think consistency plays in success?
I think almost everything. It's consistent application of something, and because everybody start. And look, I've been guilty of that. Goals and ambitions, whatever, and I start and get motivated, and then it sort of dwizzles away, if you like. And so consistency to me is integral. Consistency, yeah.
And trying to build habits, I guess, so that becomes something that's more natural rather than having to force it.
Correct. And it's not easy, Once again, I'll use myself as an example. Like, it takes me a while to learn good habits. But once I've got them, once you're into the mojo of that, very powerful. But it takes pain, it takes grit, it takes mental discipline, it takes psychological self-talk. It's not easy to get there, but that persistence and consistency, if you can do that, that's how you will achieve your goals.
Yeah. Briefly share, if you don't mind, a personal or professional setback or challenge and how you got through it.
Well, that's a deep question there, Magnus.
It's a very deep question,
Magnus the Viking.
It's question 11, so we're warmed up.
We're warmed up. Well, like anybody, I've had many setbacks, and that's part of life, And as a matter of fact, before I answer that question, that's one of the reasons why it's so important to invest in one's own mental, physical, emotional well-being, so your resilience tank is topped up. Because life gives us hands. You don't know when it's going to happen. You get that knocked from behind or whatever that's going to smash you. And if your resilience is depleted, then you and I are at higher risk of getting mentally unwell. So use the opportunity to keep building up that resilience, that consistency of application. One of the toughest things, and I'll use that, I'll go deep, I'll go into where Peter Ferreira comes from world. I grew up in a privileged environment. My dad was a doctor, a GP in South Africa. We're on top of the food chain in terms of, doctor, all that sort of stuff. Then he was tragically killed in an accident. And my mother got involved in an alcoholic relationship. So I grew up in a domestic violence environment in my teens, most of my teen years, which was it was horrible. As a matter of fact, I went off the rails myself. My brain could not process it. We went from top of the food chain to bottom of the food chain overnight. So that's what I mean. Life deals hands. I had no control over that. So initially, I played the victim. Poor me. So I made some very poor decisions at that stage of my life.
Sorry, Pete, could I ask, how old were you when that happened?
I was 12 or 13 when it happened. 12 or 13.
It's a very vulnerable age.
Very vulnerable age. And I said I could not process what happened here, and I just went off the rails, made poor decisions. Lucky to be alive, actually, Magnus, sitting here talking to you, some poor decisions I made. And then we emigrated to Australia, and I was still a wild hogget, actually, when we arrived in Australia. I had a couple of issues, couple of police issues, and almost got deported. But that's maybe the next podcast. But then I had an aha moment. I had a self-reflection, and I thought to myself, what's happening here? What am I doing to myself?
What triggered that?
It was... this is a good question. When I was sitting in the Southport police station at 1 o'clock in the morning, being picked up for smoking marijuana outside a nightclub on the Gold Coast. And then the next day I reflected, and I thought, what's going on here? And I started thinking, what will my dad be thinking about this behavior? And what am I doing? I'm just spiraling downwards into a loser, basically. And then I reset my switch. And then I got very focused about, no, I can do better than this. And that's why I learned about the power of what you can do with your mindset. First, the easy one was to be the victim, like a baby. The tougher one is, okay, I don't like this, but what can I do to change my life around? And that's why I got interested in psychology and human behavior and went down that path. So that bad environment initially, what I've learned, has actually done me a favor. It's helped me realize of a lot of things, like how fragile life can be, how unpredictable it can be, but also the amount of power and influence you and I have got in creating our lot in life. So bring it on. Bring it on.
So it's interesting, because that basically what you're saying is that you can change your situation in a second by making a decision.
Correct.
Yeah.
by just switching your mental frame, the way you look at the world, the world looks different.
How can being fit and healthy make you more productive?
Oh, you asked the wrong man. You're the fit and healthy guy. Well, from my own experience, what it does gives you more energy. And if you've got more energy, you are going to be more productive because you just got more energy, you're more productive. But also what I find with exercise, whatever, I personally also become more creative. Once I'm in an exercise mode, because you produce that feel good, serotonin and oxytocin, it stimulates creativity. So it's a no-brainer, and there's so many health benefits in addition to productivity from being physically fit.
Yeah. And when you're not working, what are some of the activities that you enjoy doing?
Wow.
I know there's a lot.
That's a lot, but succinct, one of my passions is kayaking. I live on the bay, as you know, on the island, and I love kayaking. As a matter of fact, I tell my clients I don't go by conventional time methods anymore. I go by tidal clock. It's high tide or low tide. If it's high tide, don't bother me. If it's no wind and the tide's good, I'm on my kayak, and that to me, nature, it's vicarious exercise. The other thing I've rekindled recently, just over the break, I got a passion for sketching and drawing. And I have rekindled that, and I've been finding it very therapeutic, very enjoyable. And sorry, Magnus, you have to wait. You have to wait because I'm doing a series of all the special ladies in my life at the moment. So I'm sketching them, and then once I get through that, is
that dangerous?
So far, yes, a couple I've been very worried, the hair or the whatever. So far I've been too bashed up.
Big standard.
Yeah, big standard. Yeah. But you next when I get to my male mates.
Okay. And so where is Pete Ferreira in 5 years from now?
Pete Ferreira will be still working and still doing what I'm doing because, once again, I said I'm very privileged in the work I do because my job is actually to help other people. And the longer you're on the planet, the more experience you develop. The more mistakes you make, but the more also experiences you gain. And I see it a lot of my clients, they're smart and whatever, but they haven't been on the planet as long. So 5 years from now, I'll still be doing this and maybe narrowing down the types of clients I work with, the types of work. I've already started that process. So cherry picking, because I'm privileged, I can now start cherry picking who and what I do because I love it. I love the work I do. So no stopping.
That's awesome. And during all of your coaching experience, have you found there's a common lesson that you seem to teach?
A big one, there's many, but a common one with my coaching is actually it's confidence. A lot of people actually lacks confidence, and sitting behind confidence is fear. That's why a lot of people don't make the step or don't achieve their goals because there's some fear sitting behind it. Fear of success or fear of failure or fear of risk. That's a common theme. Confidence and fear.
Yeah, okay. Describe your definition of happiness.
Oh, that's a holy grail. Happiness. Happiness to me being, once in your word, consistently feeling a state of content.
Yeah.
At different levels, mentally, physically, and emotionally, heart. So consistently over time, feeling that sense of contentness.
Is that fulfillment?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Name a good habit and a bad habit.
All right. So good habit. So I try to exercise virtually every day.
26 minutes?
26 minutes? I will now. I used to do 28 minutes, but I'm going to drop it back to 26. But exercise regular, and I'm trying to be smart around it. Like so make activity part of my life. So there's some structured exercise I do, but like there's my kayaking, which to me is vicarious. I'm not even thinking I'm exercising when I'm on a boat. And then gardening, walking, movement of some description in as many days as possible. So that is one of the ways that I'm trying to do it.
And that, from a psychological perspective, releases dopamine and what sort of other benefits?
Yeah, well, it's oxytocin and serotonin, which actually feel-good hormones. So I don't know if people realize that, but our bodies are we're like a walking chemist.
Yeah.
But we just need to access those feel-good hormones, and exercise is the number one thing. As a matter of fact, as I told you earlier, I do a lot of work with the Black Dog Institute, where they talk about building resilience. And the number one thing that's recommended to build your mental toughness or resilience towards mental illness is some form of exercise, to your level, of course. Yep. But if you look at any other diseases, with heart disease, any other physical diseases, exercise is the number one thing on the list. And we can actually prevent taking medications but we need to access these feel-good hormones through movement.
Yeah. What's been the best advice that you've ever received?
Well, I've had plenty of good pieces of advice. The main advice, I guess, is from my mother. Don't compare yourself to somebody else, because you always will lose. So have a sense of who you are. For example, I didn't use the word goals, but know what you want to achieve, what do you want to make of yourself, and then go get it.
That is good advice. Mm-hmm. Your biggest regret?
Biggest regret. I'm lucky. I've think about that, but for me, perhaps, and I don't know how I would have done it, but my children, I've got two grown-up children, and not having had an opportunity to live on a farm with them when they were younger, because I grew up on a farm. And of course now I live in a city now, but I've got the best of both worlds, and in just what growing up as a young teenager on a farm gave me, the freedom, the et cetera. That's probably one regret, that my kids never experienced that. No, they're beautiful kids, but they city slickers. They don't know what farm's like.
Yeah. What's an average week in the life of Peter Ferreira look like?
There's no average week.
Just all based on the tides.
It's based on the tides, but saying that, so part of the discipline is to do some form of exercise, and in my case, I try to do it first thing in the morning, because the mind gets lazy and tired as you go on. I've many times put it off. I'll do it tonight, and then come nighttime, then excuses. So some form of exercise, but then the nature of my work, and that's why I still motivate and love what I do, because every week is different. I work with different clients, different projects, different parts of Australia, and et cetera. So there's no predictable pattern, and I love that.
Fantastic. Psychologically, what impact does nutrition and diet have on your brain?
Okay, huge. I mean, we're all familiar with the adage, we are what we eat. And as a matter of fact, coming back to some of your earlier question there, Magnus, that's, I think, part of the reason for some of these modern diseases we have. It's the diets that we eat. And my saying is basically, or my approach is, anything out of a package, even that bowl of Nutrigrain you had this morning, tomorrow morning, Magnus, you'll be better off eating the box. There's more fiber in the cardboard that's in there. So
just for the record, I don't eat Nutrigrain, but no, you don't, because I know that you grow a lot of your own fruit and vegetables.
That's the plan, yeah. So part of the resilience and holistic living I've got on the island is sort of gradually, organically growing more and more of our own vegetables and fruit and veggies, and it's quite actually rewarding when we sit down for dinner, and then usually there's more and more of the fruit and vegetables and salads are starting to come from our own garden. So
I think it's a great principle when you've actually planted something and then you've got to nurture it and put it in the right place and watch it grow.
Correct.
What makes you laugh?
Wow, laughter. There's another immune builder. There's another resilience builder, laughter. And I don't think we laugh enough these days. That guttural tears in the eyes. And I don't know if this may be a good example, but I've got a beehive. And I've got a party trick. Maybe I shouldn't tell you this, Magnus, when you come and see my beehive, because I take unsuspecting, come and look at my beehive. It's one of those flow hives, and it's got side windows. You can open it up. You can actually see the workings inside the hive. So this is terrible, but you did ask the question. This is what makes me laugh. So I will bring an unsuspecting person. Come and look at the hive, and I open the little window, and I look in, and then invariably, they get chased by the bees. And when I see grown men running for their life, chased by a bee, I've got tears out of my eyes. So
that's funny.
You may have to edit this one out, perhaps, but that sort of stuff makes me laugh.
That is funny. And I'll make sure I'm aware of that when I come visit next. Name a typical roadblock you find people face that prevents them from reaching their potential.
comfort zone. Comfort zone, and what I said earlier as well is fear.
Yeah.
Because if you process, fear is actually one of the most powerful human motivators not to do stuff.
Yeah.
Because I deal with all the time with my clients, and when I process, it's fear. But if, or this, or why, or and stuff like that.
Yeah. The top 3 books that you've read.
Okay. Wow.
Tough question.
Yeah, because reading, brain food, and you're an avid reader, keep feeding the mind. It's so important. But I can think of them straight away. The first one I can mention to you, not in this order, but is that Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. I would have been in my mid-late 20s, and that changed my whole approach to things, because I do believe everything evolves around our self-esteem. If you accept yourself who you are, and you're okay about, you come from your own skin, then bring it on. The world looks very different, and so forth. The second one is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who was imprisoned in Auschwitz and survived, and he studied why people, powerful, and so forth. I recommend everybody needs to have that on their must-read.
Yep.
And another one is one of my heroes, a guy called Charles Handy. He's a British management guru, and I've actually modeled a lot of my philosophies and the way around my business and my life around his philosophies. He's written lots of books, but the one that resonates is called The Age of Unreason. And that was written 3 decades ago, where he talked back then about we live in this crazy world. Crazy shit happens. Stuff gets done or corporates or globally that just does not make sense. But the point of the book is that's life. Don't dwell on that or stew on that or get anxiety attacks about it. Just accept that's it. And then look forward. What am I going to do with my situation in life? Once again, that growth mindset stuff. What can I do? And powerful. And 30 years ago, still the same today.
Wow. I've got to get that one. I've not read that third one, so
there you go.
Thank you. A game-changing tip or for some advice that you could give us, Pete?
A game-changing tip. I guess work out what your Northern Star is, because there's, 8 billion people, they tell me, on the planet. So there's a lot of us running around on this planet. But my belief is, there's a place for everybody on this planet. We all belong.
I agree.
We just need to work out what it is. What's your purpose on this planet? What's the gift that you've got? Because we've all got a gift. But some people find it challenging to realize what that gift is. And that's what I mean by my Northern Star. What's that thing that's you want to be the whole, full, best version of yourself? And if you find that out, if you can nail that, once again, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Last question, mate. We've made it. So finish this sentence. I believe.
I believe we all good people. I believe we all sometimes need a bit of a hand. And I've put my hand. I've had mentors and coaches over the years. We can't do this alone, but I do believe most people have got good in them. It's just a matter of sometimes there's some support and help to elicit that. And that we all deserve to live a good life. Not just ordinary or not just existing, fucking flourishing.
Yep. Yeah, so not mediocre. Don't settle for mediocrity.
Tick. Life's too short. Life's too short, mate.
Well, mate, it's been awesome having a chat to you today, and really appreciate you taking the time to come in and all of your insights. You're a legend.
My pleasure. You're the legend, but I've got a gift for you, mate.
Oh, mate.
There you
Thank
go.
you. What is that?
I don't know. What does it say?
I haven't got my glasses on, but dream. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Awesome. All the best for 2023, Pete.
Thanks,
you.
Magnus. Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining in on today's episode, and I hope this Strong Mind, Strong Body series empowers and inspires you. Make sure you've subscribed to our channel and leave a comment if you enjoyed today's podcast. You can also check out our website for more info about M26 FIT at m26fit.au.